Had I missed the memo? None of my connections had said anything about this happening. Yet, here we were, the rest of the world now paused, collectively wondering what to do now. And I didn't want to know the answer one way or the other. It was my own experience that whenever you stood out for something you couldn't help, others were there on your tail, ready to bring you down into the shadows. I fixed my gaze on Corinne, who was clearly shaken up by this announcement. Leave those folks to whatever they claim to be, and let's focus on what we can control. And that's our first show tonight, right, darling? She nodded. But what about you? Aren't you worried? We both knew what she meant. She'd never come right out and said it, but I knew she was a smart girl. She'd figured out the truth not long after I started working my shows there at the MGM Grand. I'll figure it out. No need to fret over me. I can handle myself. I flashed her my best smile, and she seemed to relax a little. Now, would you help me pick which earrings to wear tonight? I'm thinking the diamonds. What do you think? The thunderous applause had welcomed me as I'd pushed past the curtains and stepped into the spotlight. The thrumming, deep bass echoed throughout the MGM Grand's $1 million sound system, followed by the same ethereal tune that announced my arrival to all the good folks who came to see me and my tricks. And I stood there under the heat of the stage lights, ready to dazzle them all. Well, that was my intention, anyway. I was all ready for my set. The lights were on their cues perfectly, and I waved at everyone in the crowd. Well, hello to all of you fine people tonight. I shouted into the lav mic pinned on my collar. I do hope you prepared yourself for a night of exquisite fun. I smiled at the cheers. Not that my ego needed more stroking, of course, but all the same. Despite the worry starting to gnaw on the other thoughts in my brain, I put on one of my best performances yet. The illusionist in me soaked up the gasps from the audience like a sponge ready to be wrung out. They oohed and awed throughout much of the show, and I'd wiped at my forehead for a moment to ease into the next trick, the words on the edge of my tongue. Then the boos came. I'd had a few of them here and there over the nearly 4 years I'd been here in Vegas. Even though half the Strip's occupants were drunk after 5 p.m., they were mostly polite to me. But these were different, louder and echoing throughout the theater. It was like the whole atmosphere of my show had changed. There was a low chanting I couldn't quite pick up spreading across the streets. Others were looking around, bewildered, turning in their seats and whispering to each other. I blinked and wiped at my forehead again, shielding my eyes from the bright spotlight to see just what the heck was going on. Get on out of here. These other kind people paid good money to be here too, you know. Which? My heart that had been racing was ready to jump out of my throat. Memories flooded past the gnawing worry. I screeched at them all, begging them to stop, and before I knew what I was doing, I had pushed past the side curtains, doing my very best not to get sick all over myself. They were Louis Vuitton boots, after all. I may not have been a rocket scientist, but I was particularly gifted in the knowledge of witch hunts, especially being a witch myself. With barely more than a suitcase packed, I had the key cards to my luxurious penthouse suite that had been my home for the past 2 years and practically flung them at the concierge as I went careening around the corner of the lobby. "Miss Birdie, where are you going?" he'd shouted after me from the front desk. When you've been around as long as I have, for 133 years, thank you kindly, you learn the way a proper Southern lady would handle such a nasty surprise as this. You learn to keep your wits about you, or you learn to play possum. I, on the other hand, had no choice but to go with the third option, running for the hills. Vegas illusionist Birdie loses her mind and her gig at the MGM Grand, where before you couldn't look in the general direction of the infamous hotel without seeing her name in lights somewhere, the woman who goes by simply Birdie has seemed to both fallen from grace and gone into hiding. Birdie, Magnolia.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.